Oh, welcome, welcome very, very much to Conversation. A pleasure to welcome to the program a dear friend and an old, good, dear friend of mine, that being Trudy Mason. I don't know that she needs too much explanation to the people of New York City because she's quite often here at MNN and other venues, but she is the state committee woman, Democratic committee woman, and she's very involved at the grassroots level and at the real level where the rubber hits the road in terms of understanding things, in terms of improving the likelihood of Democratic candidates being able to come into prominence, and works tirelessly in the trenches, and thank you so much for that.
Wow, what an introduction. Maybe we can end the program right now.
All right,
Maybe
why
we
not?
can end the program right now, and that's it.
That's it. Print it, send it out. No, it's really true, because I know you just work like a demon. It's so good to see you again, Trudy.
Same here.
We're here talking. We're going to put this program on the air the day before the election of the presidential election campaign and so forth, and we're going to want to talk about that, about some of the situations that are there. I'm wondering, we've just opened today. We've been closed down, as has much of New York, because we were hit by Hurricane Sandy, which has laid devastation all over the eastern seaboard, and we're just back up. And I'm wondering, I've been watching television and so forth, and I'll just a lead-in thing. We're going to be talking about the presidential election. What do you think the effects of the hurricane are in the positions of the two presidential candidates, Mr. Obama and Mr. Romney, are in terms of affecting the presidential election? I would suggest that he's very much in the news now and acting very presidential.
Exactly.
Indeed, compared to what Mr. Romney's able to try and muster, that it might be an advantage to Mr. Obama that this Hurricane Sandy hit. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, first of all, campaigning was basically suspended until today. Today is the first day, today being Thursday, that we are taping this. And I would say that when you see a president acting presidential, and you compare this to the last time that there was this kind of a natural disaster in the country, namely Hurricane Katrina.
Right.
And you compare the two, I think that's enough said, even though nobody is saying it.
But we're both seeing it from the perspective, I think, fair to say, of being favorably inclined to Mr. Obama.
Well, I will say that, but I will also say, you know, everybody has been saying all along that this is too close to call.
Yeah, they're saying
And in every presidential election, there is always anticipation of something called an October surprise.
Right,
we had the Iran, you know, the hostages. We had the return of the hostages, so many other things. Well, this year we had our October surprise, and it was called Hurricane Sandy.
Right.
One of the things that I really loved, I hate to talk about a competitor of yours, but you're on at different times, but I have become a Morning Joe aficionado, addict, you may say, and I just love it. Scarborough, and let's not forget about Mika, who the female side, Mika Brzezinski.
I'm not familiar with it, but okay,
well, it's Joe Scarborough, but at any rate, they had one of their tweets that came in. I guess it was Monday or maybe Tuesday, and it said, to both presidential candidates, this will teach you for not mentioning me in any of the 3 debates. Signed, climate change. And I think that really says it. If there's anything that has happened, I think, on our political scene, it has made, well, it's sort of a vindication of Al Gore, who everybody made fun of him back in 2000 or even before that, when he spoke about global warming and about climate change. And if there's anything that is now in the news, it's about this definitely being about climate change.
Well, okay, I just don't know all the facts on it and everything about whether or not it's that. But okay, yeah, that is an issue. Yeah, that's an issue.
It's definitely, I mean,
I've been sort of displaced when you're talking about unemployment rates and all the normal way of seeing things, interest rates and all that.
But all of
climate change is a big central issue.
But this is an economic issue. Everything, it's all about, to quote one of my favorite people back in 1992, James Carville, who said, it's the economy, stupid. And it is all about the economy. And everything has an economic impact if you really want to look at it. But certainly what has gone on in the last all week has a devastating economic impact. As you know, I used to work at the MTA, and I'm still the Manhattan.
I didn't realize that.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah, yeah,
I had
okay.
a big fancy title, and but now I'm the Manhattan representative to the Permanent Citizens Advisory Committee of the MTA.
Are you really?
Yes.
I didn't realize.
And so I know a little bit about transportation and the devastation to our mass transit system that
Here
has
in New
gone
York,
on here has such an economic impact, namely because people can't get to and from their place of work.
Okay.
And so and it's affecting small business owners. It is affecting who can't get the customers. It is affecting every bit of economic impact.
I'm trying to get at what you're talking about, the hurricane.
The
Sandy.
hurricane, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, but I'm getting back to where you said, your interest is the economy. It's all about the economy. And so what is the effect that it's going to have on the presidential? Anybody who tells you that they know, just like all the polls, I mean, this year more than any other time,
Like a roller
the polls
coaster.
have been, but they've been all over the place, depending on what poll and in what battleground state.
Has it been more? You've been following politics for a long time, local level and that and everything. Have the polls always been sort of roller coaster and all over and hard to pin down with exactitude?
Not as bad
and
as
which
this
polls
year.
do you tend to trust over the long haul?
I don't.
So you don't.
Let me
trust
tell
any
you
of them.
something,
Okay,
that
that's
what has
interesting.
been said, and I'm trying to remember the first person who I think it was David Jenkins was the first person I heard say it. No, it was probably even before him. But saying that a poll is merely a snapshot in time. And it is just a snapshot of that particular moment in time that the poll was taken. And it also depends on who you poll and how. And this year, probably the polls some people have said, who are much more knowledgeable than I am, have said that the polls are so scattered and all over the place because who are you polling? These days, when people don't use their landlines, and everybody uses a cell phone, and those aren't necessarily listed. And on your cell phone, it'll show you also have caller ID. So it's only the people who are at their landlines and who will pick up something from somebody that they don't know on their caller ID that are giving their opinions and have the time to talk to the pollsters. Or they will answer their door to somebody they don't know.
So they're missing a lot of people.
So
maybe.
maybe. That's the key word.
That's the key word. Maybe that's the key word in all of human history is maybe.
Is
there's a lot of uncertainty.
But I will also remind you, back in 1948, when there was Mr. Trudy, right, and the Chicago Tribune headline, Dewey wins, and that wonderful picture of Harry Truman holding up the saying with a biggest smile on his face, So this, I think anybody who's been involved in politics even longer than me, or will just say they don't know.
Well, I just asked you a question, how you think the fact that this, the presence of Mr. Obama on television being presidential, it was very interesting. Mr. Christie praising him. He was keynote speaker at the Republican convention. He was saying what a good president he is on the eve of a presidential election. It must be contributing to some consternation in the Romney camp, I would think.
I would think.
Hope.
Also,
I would hope.
I don't know, but the fact is I never like to say I don't know, but this is one time I don't know.
Anyway, So anyway, this is we're taping on the 1st, and on the day after this program airs is going to be the election day. I guess what is it? Fill me in, because you're sort of a political insider for me, because I'm sort of just into academia and things like that a lot. But what's this thing about early voting in a way that's relevant, that seemed to me I hadn't been aware of historically? The early voting and so forth, is that already in place and going some places? And how important is the early voting? They tried to block it in Ohio or something. Fill me in a little bit on the reality
Well, early
of that.
voting, we have always had, there's always absentee ballots, and we've had that in New York too. We don't have early voting in New York.
Okay.
There is more early voting this time out than at any other time in any other election. And
Is that
by the
the
way,
trend of the
Harold,
presidential
well,
election?
the idea is to make it available to, the opportunity to vote to more people,
Right.
and to do it over a longer period of time, so you can get more people to the
some
polls.
people can't get
And
off
it
on
also-
voting. They have to work or something.
It also depends. There's something else called in politics, an insider term called the ground game.
What?
The ground game.
Ground game. What does that mean?
And it depends on how you get people to the polls.
Right.
You have people on the ground in all of what they call the battleground states.
Yeah, there's 7.
Now,
I guess,
we are not, New York is not a battleground
no, not
state.
at all. It's Democrat.
I mean, it's what they call a blue state. It's really funny because red is my color.
I know.
And yet red is considered the Republican color,
right.
and blue is considered the Democratic
You're
color.
gonna
But
start to why don't you start going blue?
no, because red is my.
I know you've been bred ever since I can remember.
And maybe that sort of reflects my other politics. But anyway, we'll talk about that some other time.
Are we
But
going to
you
get
and
Reds used to be called communists, left-wingers.
My politics tend to be slightly left of center, yes.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but the fact of the matter is that this year there are all of these exigencies even before Hurricane Sandy.
Right.
What their impact is going to be, nobody really knows, because it depends how many people you get out to, or as some friends of mine say, how many people you can schlep to the polls.
Right.
And that is really the key thing. And
that's called ground game.
And it's called the ground game.
And those would be people who actually go out with a bus or a car or do and actually
or whatever, or get on the phone.
It's
It's also called GOTV. Get out the vote.
Get out the vote.
Get out GOTV.
Yeah.
And it's also just getting on the phones, having people running phone banks.
Right.
And it's starting early morning on Election Day.
Yeah,
but in
isn't
this
there
case, even early during early voting,
Yeah, that's
getting
what I
on the
was-
phone and calling people and saying, look, depending on what state it's in, if it's Florida or North Carolina or wherever, and saying, you can go out and vote today.
Yeah,
Do you
and-
need help getting to the poll?
And there was a Supreme Court decision in the state of Ohio, I think, just passed that made it possible. They were trying to not allow early voting because or voting where you can vote at different times, because particularly the people who are stuck, they have to go to a job or something, they can't, to make it easy for people, to make it possible for more people to vote rather than less, and to limit the number of people who can vote was part of a Republican strategy. And it was not allowed in Ohio, as I understand, by a Supreme Court decision, so they were able to vote earlier than normally they could, and that meant that there would be more people that are, let's say, democratically inclined would get a chance to cast their vote.
That is
do you understand that? Is that a reality thing that's really important or not?
There is something that is of great concern all over the country, not just in the early voting states, and it's called voter suppression.
Yes.
Keeping people away from the polls.
Right.
Whether it is because in some states they're required to show an ID before they can vote, whether it's not letting early voting, whether it's for all kinds of different things, sending people the wrong information on where their polling place is.
Yeah, right.
And that's another possible residual impact of Hurricane Sandy, because there are going to be voting places that are inaccessible, that you can't get to because they are literally going to be underwater. Or
that's true.
literally.
That is true.
Literally.
Yeah.
So there are all of these, it's people don't know. And that's why it is so important. And I'll give my commercial, and I'll do it a couple of times during this program, which is no matter how or what, every vote counts. More so than ever in this election, because because nobody knows. You said it before, the polls are all over the place. Nobody really knows.
I was trying to get from you as a pro the trends that we can see in terms of the electoral process itself.
Well, the other concern, other concern is voter turnout. We get back to, again, the GOTV, the ground game, and it is also, there are some people, you know, who might be a little disappointed that Obama didn't, you know, do everything that they wanted him to do. And so, I mean, I've run across people like this who are saying, oh, they could never vote for Romney. under any circumstances.
but they couldn't vote.
But they're just saying, oh, I'm not going to bother.
I think, don't you think that you people in the Democratic Party, you're involved in the, you know, the nuts and bolts and the real people that are running and everything, whereas I'm just a citizen and everything. But the Democratic Party is concerned with that, is it not?
Yes, and
that he had such overwhelming support. There was a real stirring of this country in 2008 with his oratory and his ability to think that there's a new thing where we're going to get some elemental justice and real change that could encode. And we had a huge turnout and a lot of just low-level raising of money, $5 here and there. It was very democratic. There was a great promise. And that has not been able to be manifested
Well,
in
don't say that.
The thoughts of many, and the voting is going to be down on the people that are disappointed by the lack of genuine change that's been able to be manifested.
But there has been, and I'm not going to give a whole campaign speech right now,
no.
but I will tell you, when I hear this, and I go and I do a lot of what they call surrogate speaking, and I speak, and especially before senior citizens groups, and before. And I now have a line that I use.
Okay.
And I will tell it to you and our audience.
Thank you.
And because we are going to air a day before election day.
That's right, exactly.
And what I say is, you tell me you may be disappointed or you're going to sit this one out. And all I say to you is, think of Barack Obama as you do old age.
Wait a minute, let me think. Think of Barack Obama
as you do. Wait, you got to get the second part.
As you think of old age, and you're talking to senior citizens.
I'm talking to seniors, but I'm talking to younger people also, because everybody has the same.
Sorry, spell it out.
Okay, then I'll say it again. Think of Barack Obama as you do old age.
Okay, what's your
thinking? It may not be that great until you consider the alternative. And then, just like you right now, think about that. What is the alternative to old age?
Youth?
No.
The end of their line, the
death.
The death. Yes,
yes, exactly.
Well,
and that is that it's considered the alternative. If you can't think of any other reason, you must still vote for Obama.
Isn't that just a thing that I understand what you're saying? That's you end up voting for the lesser of two evils.
No, I'm not saying
that's the
it
sort
that
of
way.
philosophy.
No, but that is not the. No, I'm not saying that I consider him the lesser of two evils.
No.
But I am saying to people who have just decided to sit this one out.
Yeah,
that they
quite
can't.
A few.
That they can't. That they can't.
We had an experience with Ralph Nader when he ran and really seriously took a lot of votes away from one of the two candidates. Maybe he made his thing because he had integrity in the minds of many people of thinking. And now we've got we got the Green Party, we got the Justice Party. They're not able to have a major effect because they can't get on the ballot. Do you think there's any problem about? There's a lot of people who are being attracted to alternate political parties rather than the two, in the sense that they need a big change, which was being promised at the election in 2008 and has not been able to be fulfilled.
I'm going to say
How do we
this
address
again.
that? There will be a lot of disillusioned
Let's talk
people.
about the real world.
Okay.
You have a choice between old age or death.
Well, okay, that's a thing you want to establish.
That is what because
well,
that's
how about
reality.
You got a choice between old age and rebirth of a new capitalist system there, and Romney says he's going to make everybody happy.
Harold, let's talk
let's
talk about reality.
Okay.
Let's talk about the fiscal cliff that we face at the end of December.
Okay.
Let's talk about what.
Yes.
Okay. Let's talk about what could happen.
Debt crisis.
Everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
And let's talk reality. And that's why I'm saying, and I'm giving my pitch one more time.
By all means.
No, but that's why it is so important. I've been reviewing elections with you for quite some time.
It seems.
Forever, right. I think the first time was like during the days of, I don't know, George Washington.
I think we were talking about Tommy Dewey, weren't we?
But I think it was way before.
Or was it TR?
It might have been TR, or whatever.
No, I'm making a joke.
Me too, me too.
Right.
But whenever it was, I've always said this is the most important election of our lifetime.
Yeah, they always
do
say that.
Yeah, but this one we are in because of the fiscal situation. You talk about the economy.
Yeah.
And it really is what could happen if the wrong person is elected. And let me get to another thing that you also have to go what we call down ticket, because one of the things that has happened in Washington has been this total tie-up. Nothing has gotten accomplished. In many ways, Obama hasn't been able to accomplish anything because of the gridlock in Washington.
I think Congress has the lowest rating ever. Is it 8-9% approval? I mean, the Congress or the system, and that's Democrat, Republican, is so disqualified in the minds of so many people now as being an unfunctioning fossil.
Okay, but that's why.
And something we need something new.
But
rather than the two-party
But we are
system.
not going to get. Let's talk reality again. It ain't going to happen.
So we got an institution, say the Congress, which has 8%. Let's say it goes down to 3%.
No, I am not talking about
because
again.
It's totally tied up.
Again, those are polls. I am talking about that there is
You don't
gridlock.
think those reflect?
I think there is gridlock because unless, and now I'm going to be very partisan.
Okay.
Unless we get more Democrats back into the House of Representatives, and we get a more Democrats in the Senate, where we have a one-vote majority. So we do not have a oh my God, what's the word? I just forgot it.
A veto-proof
veto-proof majority
in all three houses.
No, I'm talking about the Senate right now.
The Senate only. Okay.
The Senate. But unless we get more Democrats in both, which is why even though New York, and let me be very parochial and local right now, even though New York is not considered a battleground state for the presidency, we are a battleground state for Congress. And we have 8 seats in play. 4 people who are Democratic incumbents who face unbelievable challenges, and 4 who are trying to get out the Tea Partiers who are now in there, who came in 2010.
What about?
And I just want to finish about one thing. And the reason that this is, you've probably heard about the super PACs.
Yeah.
And the money that they are throwing in. Well, everybody, because of Citizens United, and everybody has heard about how they're throwing buckets and buckets of money, and we don't know where it's coming from, into the presidential race.
With no identification necessary.
But in New York, it's being thrown into the congressional races. People like Karl Rove and the Koch brothers, and
I think it's pronounced Koch.
Koch?
Like Coca-Cola.
Koch. Okay, the Koch brothers.
Not Koch.
I'm sorry.
I think. I'm not
sure. Okay, I'm not sure.
Okay, but
I know it's not Koch, which some people say, and I don't want Ed Koch to be insulted, so I pronounce it as far away.
Koch, like Coca-Cola.
The Koch brothers.
Or Coke is a drug, you know.
Could be, but at this time, whatever it's pronounced,
get away from
it's an awful lot of money, and nobody knows where it is coming.
It's called the 1% by the Occupy
all
movement.
of these super PACs coming in, and they are throwing their money into these congressional campaigns.
And since all the capital assets are owned by a tiny plutocratic class, and you got a 1% population, that there was a movement of the Occupy movement about the 99% trying to make some sort of a case for something different than the normal pattern. That's another thing we could talk about.
We could, but I am really, I'm going to, you usually can get me off on a tangent. This is one time that
You're going to stick to
I am really going to try to, because it is so important. And the people who say a pox on both your houses or forget about it because it doesn't really matter who, this time it does matter. But it does matter for getting good people into the U.S. House of Representatives, keeping the good people who are there. I am not going to mention any names because I could go, I can give you a laundry list right now. But there are 8 races in play. Anybody who wants to know about them. And
8 races? You're talking now in New York?
In New York, battleground New York. That's why I'm saying everybody says, we don't have to worry in New York, it's a shoo-in. And that's another reason why
people... For president, it is. You don't have, it doesn't
but
have a
you
vote.
have to worry about the down ticket candidates.
Well, and that would be a responsible way to take it.
And that is something that you really, because more so than the president, they are your local representatives.
Okay, a couple of things, if I could. Since 2008, we had an election. There was a stirring. There was something, a real change coming, right? and then the institutions always have a lag, and there's certain things built into our system and everything like that. But one thing is the Tea Party. They had this thing that came up in the 2010, and they voted so many people in and ran over and got control of the House of Representatives and so forth. But I see people, I don't watch it except sort of peripherally and everything, but I see people saying that the Tea Party is all but dead. It was a thing that was there, and it had a great effect with a lot of populist concern on the right and other things, but that it's practically dead, has no meaning or hardly any juice now. And then the other thing is, just at a more pragmatic level, but I mean, what's the implication of they had a sort of strong influence in 2010 that seems to be waning, but then what is the prospect of the Democratic Party in terms of the House of Representatives outcome from this election? Is there any chance they could win back the control of the House of Representatives? What are the realities for the House?
That's what I was just have been talking about.
Well,
that's what we call the down ticket. But this is true. When I talk about 8 seats in play in New York, I'm talking. The same thing is true nationally. Well, we have to have a turnover of 25.
Okay, lay it out.
We have to have a turnover.
The Democratic Party has to have
a turnover of 25 seats
across
in the House.
The nation.
In the House.
Okay.
But holding on to what we've got and then turning over 25. I don't know.
Is that a long shot? Is that possible? Is it likely? Is it probable? What do the polls show? Is there a chance?
Here you go
is it impossible?
Here you go with
I know, but I just want to guess at it.
Harold, if there's one thing I'm going to try to wean you away from, it's polls. I will tell you that anything is possible, and especially in this strange year. But certainly we have got to increase our numbers in the House. Even if we don't and is it possible that we'll turn it around? Hey, the Republicans turned it around in 2010.
I said there was a groundswell of something called Tea Party that seems to have evaporated.
No, it hasn't evaporated.
It seems to be, to me, it seems to have just gone away.
No, it hasn't gone away because all of their people who they elected are running, or many of them are running for re-election. And in those places where they are not, we have Tea Partiers right here in New York who were elected, and we are. That's why we are pushing for Democratic candidates to get them out.
What I'm trying to get at by bringing up the Tea Party thing is those people who came in on this little, let's just say it's a little blip in terms of the national sociology or something. There were these people who were upset with everything not being perfect and everything, and they had the Tea Party. It was sort of it seemed to me like sort of a group of people who tended to not to be terribly gifted in terms of intelligence. They had simplistic views of things, and those people are likely to be vulnerable who had been elected into, or that feeling in the country seems not to have anything like the oomph it had and was able to have in terms of the 1910 election.
Harold,
2010 election.
You are viewing this from the perspective of New York City, Manhattan.
No,
let me just. One of the things that I also talk about. Yeah, but you're here. You're viewing it from the perspective of New York.
Yeah.
And I very often say, and I'm going to say it again at the risk of repeating myself.
Okay, yeah.
There is a whole world west of the Hudson and south of New Jersey.
Are you kidding me?
No, I'm really telling you that. We are not like the New Yorker cover. Remember the old Steinberg cover? There was New York and the rest of the world.
Yeah.
And we have to realize that from our vantage point, maybe we don't see it, though I will tell you right now, I will name one race because I'm helping him a lot.
Please.
There is a wonderful young man named Mark Murphy who is running against the Tea Party candidate, Bob Grimm. It's the one he got in New York, and he is a Tea Party candidate, and they are throwing money like crazy into his race.
Who's throwing money into that pot?
The super PACs.
The Koch brothers?
You can put. I don't know.
Are the Koch brothers behind that Tea Party nonsense?
I don't know.
Are the big money behind that, or the banks behind that? How could they be? I mean,
how could they be?
A populist piece of nonsense.
I don't know because I don't know who is doing. But I will say that it is quite a coincidence that you have the Citizens United, you have the super PACs, and you have the rise of the Tea Party, and all of this money now coming in from the super PACs for the Tea Party incumbents.
Okay. I want to get something straight. My notion that the Tea Party thing of 2010 is a spent force.
I disagree.
I'm wrong in that, you're saying?
That's
my sense
I am
of
not
things.
saying you are right or wrong. From my perspective, I think you are incorrect.
Okay.
Let me put it that way.
So that's still a major thing, all that.
I think it has now become not so much outsiders because they are now the insiders.
Well, okay,
A
but even
lot of
within,
their
I don't know what the dynamics within the Congress and everything. It just seems to me. Okay, I may be wrong. I shouldn't bring it up because I'm just a citizen.
No, you can bring it up.
Sensing things in a general
It is
sense.
very, but I'll say it again.
We had a blip that came along. It was a nonsense thing, and now it's gone.
You are sensing it. No, it is not gone. Unfortunately, it's a fact of life. As a matter of fact, there are many who say, and I don't know this, that the Tea Party has basically taken over the Republican Party.
Well, that group, that thing, but do they still have, that's Mr. Norquist and all that stuff and all that kind of thing.
Exactly. I
So
heard
all of that,
Grover
but
Norquist.
that's such a dramatic kind of thing like that. What if we end up with a, what are we likely to end up with in terms of the election? We're talking now, we want to get as many things out for the Democrats as we can and everything, obviously, for that, because, but are we going to have a split Washington?
I do not.
Which seems to be deadlocked.
But that's
in
what
being
I
able
said.
to get anything done.
That's why I have been talking about going down ticket and working and supporting and voting.
Well, then I asked you a
for-
question. Is there any chance in the big bugaboo has been the House of Representatives where they took over in this big landslide in 2010? You say
Yes.
it's not a spent force. It's still there. It's still going. Are we still going to be there? And they're still going to be saying no, 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 no to everything that's being proposed by the Democrats? Is it still going to be a house of cards that can't get anything done?
That's why we have to get more good Democrats elected.
Will it do any good as long as that majority is still there?
Well, they're allowed a
House?
louder voice, and we don't know. You know something? Can we take over the House, back the House this time? Absolutely.
In this election tomorrow.
Can
in
we?
this
Of
election
course.
Tomorrow. Okay.
Of
That's
course.
what I was asking you. But
we?
you don't
But
want to
I
go to
don't
any
know
polls.
what. No, I don't, because but is there a possibility if everybody goes out and votes, or everybody who's going to vote for Barack Obama and then votes down ticket, we can get 4 seats and hold on to 4 seats here in New York. But we can get
4 additional.
No, we can hold on to what we've got and get back 4 seats that we lost.
So what about on the national? How many do we have to have that conversion on the national scale to gain control of the House?
A lot.
20
I don't know. I really don't know.
It's an important question.
The number.
Isn't it?
I don't know the number nationally. All I can tell you about. We need. I'll say it again. A turnover of 25 seats. Turnover, which means that we don't lose
Hold
anything.
and not lose. And gain.
Yes, and we gain. Okay, and then we can take back the House.
So what are people
Is it
saying?
going to happen? We are. I wouldn't be sitting here with you right now and talking about it if I didn't think there was a shot at having
Okay, what
it.
about the Senate?
The Senate, I think we're going to hold, especially when you talk about these 2 candidates, one in Missouri, who talked about.
Eakin or something?
No, I don't even want to mention his name. He's running against Claire McCaskill, who was the incumbent, a woman.
Yeah.
And who said that there was that women's bodies had a way of repelling rape, and you should never have abortion.
That sounds like Tea Party nonsense.
But
to me. There's a lot of
he
that,
is running. He is running there. And then in Indiana, just last week, Mr. Murdoch, who is running against a wonderful candidate named Joe Donnelly, and he said that it was if there was, I don't want to paraphrase him wrong, but basically he was against abortion even in the case of rape or incest, because if a woman was raped, and producing a child, it was God's will.
Yeah, yeah.
And you have these people which have raised the issue again of rape, of women's health, of women's, violence against women, and a lot of other things. And that is also one of the intangibles, and I just don't believe it, was that all of a sudden some of these polls are showing the gender gap getting smaller.
Yeah, this is the first debate, apparently.
I cannot believe this. But it is not about a woman's right to choose. It's again about the economy. And if women realize that for economic reasons they should vote Democrat. I'm wearing this little button here, which quotes, it says, it's up to the women.
It's got
and it's about Eleanor Roosevelt. Eleanor Roosevelt said it. We have something here in New York called the Eleanor Roosevelt Legacy. But this is true all over the country. Women have to realize, Eleanor Roosevelt is like my idol, I really
along with Bella.
Bella was my God, my political. That's why I'm so
Bella
quiet.
Abzug, that would be.
Yes, and that's why I'm so quiet, shy, and unassuming. But I actually had the opportunity to meet Eleanor Roosevelt while I was in college.
Did you really?
Well, I was her escort at her very last college speaking tour. Yeah,
wow.
I'll give an advance commercial for my friend. Well, let me just go on and just say that, yes, and Eleanor Roosevelt has always been my idol, and, I will give the commercial. Blanche Wiesen Cook, who has written volume 1 and 2 of Eleanor Roosevelt, which has won every award in the book, is now working on volume 3.
Okay.
And she is going to write something about that. And if you can imagine an 18-year-old kid who loves politics being able to spend 3 days with Eleanor Roosevelt.
Yeah.
So but Eleanor Roosevelt said it best.
She had a huge hand in helping to put the Universal Declaration of Human Rights
Oh,
on the
absolutely.
She had a huge hand in that.
She did so much.
That's a major document.
And
1948.
Another one of my favorite Eleanor Roosevelt quotes is, "A woman is like a tea bag. You put her in hot water and she only gets stronger."
That's a pretty clever phrase. I've never ever heard that.
That's
We haven't got
Roosevelt.
anybody coming out of the tea bag. It shouldn't. Anyway.
No, but that is the contrary notion. That's why I'm saying it. You had asked about the Tea
trying
Party.
to overturn
so
Roe,
we can take the Tea Party and the tea bag and turn it around and make it our.
Well, okay, I'd like that. I was just thinking, you haven't got a contingent yet coming out of it, looking over the history of the United States and saying everything was going great there back with, back at the turn of the century and all. Then we gave these women the vote in 1920. We ought to take the vote away from these irrational women. And they haven't come up with that yet, Is they're going to try and do away with Troll?
No, I don't think they've gone.
How ignorant can we get that could still have political relevance and still have
that's
vote-getting
why
capability?
it's up to the women to realize. And there are some very, very good men who are also, I'm going to use a dirty word now.
Go ahead, it's cable.
Feminist. And I am proud to say I'm a
grandmother, my paternal grandmother was the first woman ever to break the glass ceiling and become the first woman ever to graduate from the University of Michigan Medical College.
Wow, okay.
And I was assured by one and all that she was a real tough bird.
Well, that we have to be. We can never let our guard down.
No, I'm just being off the charts crazy.
No, but it's not being
what I'm
crazy.
worried about
Harold,
is just the frustration and the ignorance that seem to be in a good supply in the country, the tremendous sense of change that was the hope of November of 2008, the change 2010, and the fact that this race could be close. This race could be close in terms of actually being close is something speaking about dysfunction of the whole system. There's something, it's so obvious that there, do you understand what I'm saying?
I agree with you.
And I do agree with you. It's a major election.
But this is the system that we have. Was it Winston Churchill who said
it's the worst.
The democratic system works.
Democracy
Democracy
actually
works, but only after all other alternatives have been.
Well,
no,
that's
democracy is the best system we have, but only after all other alternatives have been exhausted.
Well,
meaning,
yeah,
or
that's
it's the
yeah.
best.
Now you got it. Yeah.
I can't remember the exact.
You got
quote.
it. You got it, girl.
I got
yeah.
it. Okay.
Yeah.
But so we have to realize this is the system we have.
Well,
and do we want to make it even worse by sitting on our hands, by not going to vote?
Do we Do we make it? This is what. Well, that's like the saying. Trudy, did you know Trudy Kupferberg and the Foggers and stuff? You weren't into that kind of thing, I guess.
No, but I know who.
Trudy, a hero of mine. He said, "How is it? How is the Foggers? What is it? Every time we wake up voting for the lesser of two evils."
Well, let me tell you something.
Are we ever going to get a system that's really democratic? We've got a thing where all the capital assets are owned by a tiny plutocratic class. They bailed out in the force of trillions of dollars to the banks. Nobody, all kinds of foreclosures allowed to go through. Nobody goes to jail. There's no accounting for the people who did that and everything like that. We are not a democracy economically. We are a plutocracy.
Harold, let me remind you of an election that took place in 1968. If you want to talk about alternatives.
68.
Okay? And we were then fighting. I was out demonstrating against the war. I was getting arrested along with everybody else.
Yeah, I know.
But and the McCarthy kids came clean for Gene and all.
Yeah.
When Gene McCarthy and after the Chicago convention, and they all said, we're going to sit on our hands. We're not going to do anything. There was a wonderful candidate named Hubert Humphrey who made a mistake, and he admitted to many of us afterwards that he came out, his big failing was he was being too loyal to Lyndon Johnson, because his politics was certainly left of center. He came out of the Minnesota Farmer Worker Party.
I did
and
a
what
program
happened?
with Hubert Humphrey,
and what happened in '68 with a lot of people who were very upset about the war, as they should have been. I was one of them. But then I worked my tushy off for Hubert Humphrey because I knew what else we would have. And what did we wind up with?
Mr. Nixon.
Okay, I rest my case about sitting home and saying that the system is no good and that where there was hope and it's not enough. Well, you wind up with Richard Nixon.
What do you make, or what do people who are in, let's say, spokespeople or for the practicality of the system? The thing is, you have to deal with practical reality. You've got a two-party system, and that's it. That's the choices. What about is the attitude, or ought be the attitude, about this little thing that got stirred a couple years ago after, it was called Occupy. And you had people all over the world coming out in places, and they were coming out, or in countries like Spain and countries like that now across the world. You got the movement, the proudest in India. You've got people all over the place who are the people of the world, who are not served by the interests of those who have control over the political economic system, that are saying we need a qualitative change. And the attitude of the established people, or the middle class, or the upper middle class people who are comfortably ensconced in a system that is not functioning well, and it's not got a good projection. Is there anything to be said for the fact that there is a mass movement that has to be
It's not a mass movement.
Down? Well, okay, then that's gone away the same way the Occupy movement was beaten down, and it was, stopped. They don't want to hear anything about it. There's no mention of the poor people anymore. It's only middle class. That's the only thing everybody's accounting to. Is there anything stirring on this planet that we need a change beyond the political status quo?
Harold, you are talking to someone who has always had one foot in the establishment and one foot as anti-establishment as you can be.
Did you participate in the Occupy movement?
I will also tell you about somebody else who was part of the anti-establishment. a man by the name of Eldridge Cleaver. I know I'm quoting all over the place.
Yeah, go
But
ahead.
when you find people who say it better than you can, you quote them.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
And Eldridge Cleaver said, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. And just to go out there and saying, we've got to tear everything down, we've got to change everything, rather than realizing that you can do a lot by working within the system and changing it from within.
Okay.
Or at least that you want to know what my philosophy is.
Right.
That's me.
Okay,
that's
good.
why
That's a pragmatist.
Yes.
Yeah,
well, somebody once asked me to define my political philosophy.
Yeah, okay.
And I said, I am a pragmatic idealist. And the
That's
person who
interesting,
asked me that said, but that's a contradiction
It
of
seems,
terms.
yeah, right,
And
yeah.
I said, that's me. I am
I'm
a contradiction of
in
terms.
Yeah,
Of
okay.
terms.
Right, okay,
Of terms.
yeah.
And but this is what I firmly believe.
Right,
I am being pragmatic. I am trying to be realistic, but do not go away from my fundamental beliefs. And I know not enough, but I know many people who feel the same way that I do and are working within the system, but to try to change it. Not maybe drastic change, not maybe revolutionary change. No,
That's
but
not in the cards,
But
right?
just nudging it a little in the right direction.
Okay.
And you can get things accomplished by nudging in the right direction. But there is nothing accomplished by just sitting on your hands and sitting home and saying, because I don't like any of this and I don't like the whole system, so I'm just going to not get involved.
Well,
and
we could have. There were at the time of the American Revolution, 30% of the people were dyed-in-the-wool supporters of the crown. 30% of them were on the thing. Only a few were really people who said, let's make a change. Let's stand up to this system that is not serving us well. We need a new system.
And most of
it's
them,
called a revolutionary movement and
most
feeling.
of them, no. You happen to be talking to somebody who I am certainly not a historian as others are, but I was a history major. I studied history, and it's my avocation to this day.
Okay.
And most of our founding fathers, and don't forget there weren't any founding mothers, even though they had a lot to do with it. And I give you Abigail Adams and some of the others.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, they were what you would now call the establishment. They were the landowners, they were the merchants, they were the merchant class, they were part of the, if you want to go to our terms, they were part of the 1%. And a lot of them,
the point is made about the current situation.
No, but that's why when you're saying they were the revolutionaries,
no,
not really.
Well,
they owned these huge estates in Virginia. They were the landowners. They were in Boston. Okay, so they were revolutionaries from within, but for their own purposes. But if we looked at them today, we would say, oh my God, they were part of the 1%.
But isn't it true that they don't? Do you hear anything being said in the campaign about the poor? Nobody's paying attention to the poor or the downtrodden. It's all middle class.
No, because
that's all you hear is middle class, middle class,
that
middle
everybody,
class. Jobs, middle class, bourgeois.
Agree, but you need
nothing for the masses of the people of the world.
You need in order to raise yourself up to everybody. Look, I'm a kid from the slums. I was born in Brownsville.
Really?
Yeah, Brownsville, Brooklyn. Yes, okay. And Brownsville, and my father was a labor leader.
But you have the bearing of the creme de la creme.
Well, my dear, I am a kid. I went to college on full scholarship because otherwise I wouldn't have been able to go, and waited on tables. And I mean, I'm not going to tell you my whole sad story, but let me just tell you. And so now I represent the fashionable Upper East Side of Manhattan. Okay, but every poor kid, everybody aspires to be what we now call middle class. I don't know what middle class is because I don't know what you are in the middle of. No, I don't know what you are in the. Hey, Harold, you can call me a lot of things. I don't think you can call me bourgeois.
Okay.
Unless you want to, and then I'll give you arguments
I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about the society and the politics and the zeitgeist and what's going on.
But what I am saying is that we all aspire to better ourselves than our parents, and we all aspire for our children. You know, I don't have any children of my own, but I have adopted a lot of young people in politics and without. They call me, they tell me that I'm like the soap opera, which recently got canceled, All My Children.
Okay.
Okay, and I have a lot of young people who are the hope for the future. Are they all, and a lot of them say, and I also, well, I've taught them on the college level, which I absolutely love, and I taught at Marymount for a while in their adult education. No, I taught politics and I taught communications.
Oh, you're a good person.
And I'm going to be doing it again.
Good. Okay.
But I will tell you, and then I've lectured at every place from NYU to Columbia to all over the place, all over the map.
Yeah, you're all
and,
over.
But I will tell you that I meet these young people, and they are the hope for the future. But many of them, for the first time, they can't find a job, and they want to find a job.
John Maynard Keynes, who set everything up, including all of the institutional structures and so forth, you know, the International Monetary Fund, the whole system by which the system operates, said in a letter to his grandchildren, he was talking about the zeitgeist and seeing things. He said in the letter to my grandchildren in 1930, they're going to be confronted with something that's very hard to see, structural, massive, technological unemployment. Now, that's what he said. It wasn't because of a certain policy or something. It was technologically, structurally built in.
These young...
And the only way we have the distributing income to people, where the assets are all owned by a tiny plutocratic class getting more concentrated all the time.
Harold,
the only way we have to no, wait a minute. The only way we have to distribute buying power to the people is for them to have a job on the estate where all the assets are owned by a tiny plutocratic class.
No, because they can have a job that they can then work towards not being part of this plutocrat, but first they have to get a job. They have to aspire to something.
Well, Mr. Keynes said you're not going to be able to.
Well, can I disagree with Mr.
Yes,
I hate to disagree with him, but I am talking about the young people that I now that I
We're going to be able to get everybody.
And will they be? And they aspire to be even better than their parents, and for the first time, they're moving back home with their parents.
That's not a good trend, is it?
Well, I don't think it's good for them.
They're loaded down with debt. They came out of a university. They're loaded down with debt, and they got that burden around their neck. And there's no jobs that you get an algorithm that can displace 50,000 people.
Should they just? They can do one of two things. They are out there fighting the establishment. I have not seen anything since when we were in the 60s, fighting the establishment.
Like the Occupy
But
movement.
many of us then became, look, I was down on Wall Street. I was down with the Occupy.
You were occupied? Did
no,
you
I
camp
wasn't
out?
an Occupy. No, and I didn't camp out, but I
didn't.
was down there and visiting with them and spending time. And there were a lot of people who were in elective office, who were what you would call middle class, or that they might call the 99%, except you can't put everybody into niches like that. And I will tell you that a lot of these young people, they gave me hope.
Yeah.
But then something happened.
Well,
But
I said
they're a
before
lot
the
better.
Tea Party's gone away,
But
and
they're-
you said the Occupy's gone away.
No, I did not say that. I've said that all of these movements, maybe they're underground, maybe they're, but all I know is in the 60s, those of us who were the children of the 60s and those of us who were out there fighting for everything, civil rights, against the war, for peace.
We were on the same barricades,
We were
darling,
all, exactly, and getting ourselves arrested.
Yeah, right, lots.
And I am proud that
I got arrested many a time.
How many times?
Well, about 4, 5, 6 times. I got
But
thrown in jail.
I've been arrested 7 times in a
God
lifetime.
bless you.
Okay.
Who is it that makes that? Yarrow. That fellow you had sing at a party with Miss Maloney.
Well,
he
he's
said
one of my...
It was the heroes that have been arrested.
Right,
you know,
right.
For
Well,
violation
a friend of mine named Aunt Feeney wrote a wonderful song called "Have You Been to Jail for Justice?"
That's it. That's the song.
Yes,
I think he had to sing that one time at a meeting.
He has sung it many times.
But that spirit's still in the air somewhere,
It
isn't it?
is still in the air, but I am telling you where I having been arrested 7 times, I'm coming from now. I do no longer, and you may call me cynical, you may call me pragmatic, but I think we have to stay, to go back to Eldridge Cleaver, you stay involved and you vote. You don't subjugate your right to vote. That is the most important right that we have.
That's
and we have some of the
and
lowest
particularly on this day before the event.
Exactly.
Election polls are open tomorrow, and everybody has to get out there.
And everybody has to get out there to vote. And even if you feel, vote, because otherwise you don't have a voice. And again, for the 3rd time, I will quote Eldridge Cleaver, who was a revolutionary. And he said, no, but he said it best.
Okay, he said
if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. And the solution is to vote and make your voice heard, and then go down to Washington, then demonstrate. But knowing that it was the people who are more attuned to your point of view than to the other side. Because you can't demonstrate against the Tea Partiers, and you can't demonstrate against all the super PACs. They don't care.
Okay, well, that's one thing. Listen, we're coming right down to the wire. I got a little thing along with millions of others from our friend Michael Moore, who does this, and he's suggesting, he put it out, and he's saying he's got one thing he wants to have everyone know: 90 million are planning not to vote. 90 million people in this country are planning not to vote. That's a lot of the discontent I was trying to raise between 2008 and now and so forth. And he says, your mission, take just one of them to the polls. This is Mr. Moore. And he's saying that they've done polls and so forth. That do you realize that there are 90 million people who are planning not to vote next Tuesday? That's the day after this program airs. To go to the polls and it would get them to go and vote for Barack Obama. This is what he's suggesting. And he says, now, do you realize that there are 90 million people who are not planning not to vote? That's according to a poll according to USA Today. 90 million. It's a shocking number, isn't it? In the old days, we'd label these people apathetic or stupid. Not anymore. They don't need our admonition. They need our empathy. And it says also, for whatever it's worth, since you're on the Democratic side of things, he said, in that poll, they said that 18% of the people who said they were not going to vote said they would have voted for Mr. Romney, and 43% said they were going to vote for Mr. Obama. The Obamas have it, I would say, and we ought to get the not going to bother to vote people to the polls, because it's going to benefit the Dems.
Harold,
and I think
isn't that what I have just been saying for the last hour?
I think you've been saying that the whole hour with all my nonsense getting in the way.
That is what I am saying, and when Michael Moore says it, and no, I really mean this. That there are a lot of people like me saying this. Because that is going to make the difference.
Let's say it together. Here, lean over this way a little bit, and let's look out in camera 2. Everybody who thought they weren't going to go to the poll tomorrow, get out and go and vote.
You must vote. And vote for the Democrats, because they are more. It is for your own benefit.
They are the lesser of.
Don't even say the lesser of two evils. Don't even say that it is. Just look at the choice. If you can't think any other way, and I will say it again, it is think of the Democrats, think of me, and all of us as you do old age. It may not be that great until you consider the alternative, and you can't let the alternative happen.
All right, that's better said. So go out, everybody go out and vote tomorrow. This is being aired on the 5th of November, and everybody's to go out and vote. And there's all kinds of implications to it. We'll see what happens, and we'll know after tomorrow how things look and everything like that. Anyway, thanks a whole lot for viewing.
And I will be chauvinistic and say again, it's up to the women.
All right. It's
every woman hearing this, get out there and vote for your own interests.
And
every man, every correct.
Let me shoot for the men.
Okay.
You spoke for the women. I get to say, don't we ever get a chance to say anything in this society?
No.
And all the men get out there and vote also. It's been your pleasure to have the perceptions of Trudy L. Mason. She's state committee woman, And let's put up her graphic, and she, thank you very much, Trudy, for coming in. Always good to talk to you. Keep up all the good work and everything like that. I brought up all these questions that I think are in many people's mind on this eve of election, a day that's so crucial, as you say.
Well, Harold, thank you for giving me the opportunity once again.
My dear.
Oh, my God.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Gallant, right?
Absolutely.
Your
absolutely.
pleasure to have had her,
absolutely.
Your pleasure to have had her perceptions. Go vote tomorrow. And Trudy, thanks a lot for coming in and encouraging one and all to do just that.
And take somebody to the polls with you.
And take somebody to the polls with you that wasn't going to vote. That's
exactly.
a good idea. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay, we've done our citizens' duty. See you tomorrow. Thank you for tuning. We'll be coming back again tomorrow. Okay, well, so we got all that in, darling, and so now we got to go and get this to you.
You know what I was doing?
What were you doing?
I was channeling my inner Bella.
Bella, thank you, with the hat.
My inner Bella.
She was wonderful.
Oh,
huh?
she was. She was.
You knew her
absolutely.
pretty well.
Need a hat for that.